Hi, this is Janelle from My Teaching Cupboard, and I'd like to show you how I make my weather gnomes. We'll start by painting the dolls. I use 6cm peg dolls, and I always use a reasonably good quality paintbrush and good paints. It'll make your job so much easier if you invest in some quality supplies. You'll also need a jar of water and a towel or a rag and a palette. I use a ceramic tile with a damp sponge on the palette. It keeps the paint moist and it stops it drying out, but you could just use an ice cream tin lid or a paper plate or even a purchased palette. So you prepare your palette. I cover the damp sponge with a greaseproof paper, and then you ensure that your wood is clean and dry. Sometimes they need a light sand, but I don't find this happens very often. Make sure you shake your paint bottle really well and then mix the paint into the tip of the brush bristles. The paint should be about halfway up the bristles and it should be nice and smooth. To get a good consistency, you can mix it with the water. Don't apply the paint too thickly. It's better to do a couple of thinner coats rather than one thick coat. Smooth out any ridges in the paint as you go. And here you can see it's just a gentle motion. You can wiggle the brush to get up into the crevices. And I'm just smoothing it out. If your paint's a bit thick or lumpy, just mix more water with it. So you can paint the bottom if you wish. And then just set it aside to dry before your second coat. Now while that's drying, we'll start on the felt hat. To make the hat, you'll need some wool felt, the hat pattern that's included in my download, some basic sewing supplies like a needle and small scissors, and you'll also need some embroidery floss. I attach the hat with craft glue, but you could use a hot glue gun. Now I should have pinned that pattern to the wool. That would have stopped it moving around, but you just cut the felt out around the edge of that paper pattern. And then you take your embroidery floss. It comes in 6 strands and you need to split it. You can split it into 2 or 3. I use 3 strands for the weather gnomes. And then you put a knot, you thread that onto the needle, and then you put a knot in the end because you'll use a blanket stitch to stitch up the hat. So I fold the felt in half so that the sides marked A and B on the pattern are together, and this is going to form the back seam of the hat. Now start at the top of the hat, inside between the 2 layers, and then I push the knot to the inside so that you can't see it. And start at the back, push your needle through both the layers and leave a little light loop. Pass your needle through that loop. That forms a knot and the start of your blanket stitch. Just keep going down from the back, leave a little loop, pass your needle through. Through the 2 layers from the back, always come in from the back. leave that loop, pass your needle through. Sometimes the thread can get a little tangled and it knots up. If that happens, just drop the thread. So you go right to the end, and then I also do a blanket stitch around the brim of the hat. You don't have to do that, I just think it makes it finished off nice. So it's the same process, except this time you're going through one layer. From the back, pass your needle through, leave a little loop, and the needle through the loop. You work your way around the whole hat. When you get back to the start, I usually do a knot on either side of the seam, and then instead of just cutting that thread off, I pass the needle through the inside stitches and then cut it off inside the hat, and that hides your thread. Now, to add the icons, you will need some Mod Podge and an older paintbrush, because Mod Podge is like a glue and it can wreck your good paintbrushes if you don't wash it out properly. And I use either a 1 inch or a 1 1/4 inch circle paper punch, but you don't need that. You can just cut around the circles with scissors. So this is punching out with the 1 inch punch. The 1 inch punch doesn't include the borders, but if you use the 1 1/4 inch punch, you'll get your borders. And then you decide which icons to go with which coloured paint. So shake your Mod Podge really well, and using the old paintbrush, apply the Mod Podge over the general area of where you'd like your icon to be. I used an old brush and some of the hairs were falling out. If that happens, just wipe them away. Then you put your icon on and smoothing it out with your fingers. Mod Podge dries clear, so you don't need to worry that white will go away. And then apply the Mod Podge all over, including on top of the icon, smoothing out the ridges. And then set it aside to dry. Now we'll secure on the hat. You just run a line of glue around the whole inside brim of the hat. And then position it on the doll, push it down, and then just let it dry. Now for painting the eyes, I use the tip of the brush handle. You could mark the eye position with a lead pencil first, and then you can rub that out until you get the exact place you want the eyes. But the trick is to just dip the tip of the paintbrush handle into the paint and then dab it gently onto your doll. So it's dip and stamp. Do that for both eyes, dip and stamp. It's just a simple up and down motion. And then you'll have your finished dolls. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Thanks for watching.